room smells faintly of rosewater and sweat. A dozen women bustle around a mirror, pinning silk to a young bride's shoulders. She sits completely still, watching her reflection with the kind of calm that only exists when fear has nowhere else to go. Her name, at least in this moment, is Neda Rahimi. Someone hands her the garland of orange blossoms. Another woman laughs, calling her a nervous bride. Neda smiles back, but her eyes don't move. She counts the seconds between each laugh, measuring distance like a trained observer. Somewhere down the hall, men argue in Farsi about permits and catering. None of them notice the small briefcase resting under the vanity table. It isn't for makeup. Outside the hotel window, the city hums in evening heat. Tehran in late August, dust turning gold, voices rising, radios leaking news no one trusts. Neda hears the same phrase repeat on 2 different broadcasts. Tightened border checks. She listens, memorizes, and files it somewhere behind the smile she's still wearing. A knock at the door. A middle-aged woman enters with a folded document. She greets Neda like an aunt. Her voice, soft and familiar, gives the illusion of safety. But the papers she carries are blank. Their signatures will be added later somewhere far from here, by someone who doesn't exist. Neda signs anyway. The pen shakes once, not from nerves but from the weight of rehearsal. She has signed so many false names that her own no longer feels authentic. On the bottom line, she hesitates. For a fraction of a second, the silence in the room holds too long. One of the bridesmaids tilts her head, studying her. The moment passes when laughter from the hallway fills the gap. When the others leave, Neda presses her palms together and exhales. She pulls from the corner of her veil a thin earpiece thread and tucks it back beneath her hairline. It is never used indoors. Never where a microphone might catch static that doesn't belong. She has learned this rule by watching others disappear. Her reflection stares back, pale in the mirror light. Somewhere underneath the perfume and powder sits Yael Ben-Or, field operative of a service that doesn't acknowledge her. The wedding is only hours away. The guest list is authentic enough to survive a casual look, but she knows there's one name she cannot control: the man Tehran believes she's marrying. 2 years earlier, Yael stood in the same city under a different name, cataloging the faces of floor traders and shipping clerks. No one remembers her then. They knew her as Lala, an expatriate fashion buyer from Paris, fluent in the city's gossip, unremarkable in every way meant to be forgotten. That forgettable woman built the foundation for today's bride. The operation began with a misfiled request in Mossad's technical branch, a referral from a scientist who wanted out. He wasn't an agent, only a clerk who copied ledgers. His coded transmissions mentioned shipment receipts, isotope, counters, and the name of an intermediary, Farzan. Intelligence analysts later called him the archivist. Yael's task was to verify him. Extraction would come later, maybe never. Verification missions rarely reached daylight, but somewhere along the chain a new directive rewrote her role. If the man proved valuable, extraction would occur using a cover operation already in motion, a wedding under the guise of reunifying estranged families. The plan sounded absurd at briefing. Weddings drew attention, police approvals, archives, and family witnesses, every element dangerous to secrecy. But the planners argued the opposite. Attention could be shielded. Bureaucracy would protect what it believed to be ordinary celebration. Still, 2 things haunted Yael from the start. First, the authenticity risk to maintain her legend. She needed living relatives. Records could forge them, but living people could undo her. Mossad created cousins out of scraps, a tailor's apprentice in Shiraz, a London student posing as the groom's brother. Each learned their roles by scripted memory. Any lapse, any wrong accent or habit exposed them all. Second, the emotional risk to approach the archivist. She needed sympathy, not recruitment. He already feared blackmail. So she invented tragedy, a fiancé lost in the war, a family torn by exile, a longing for a home that no longer welcomed her. It worked too well. The man trusted her. He believed her loneliness because pieces of it were true. Her Tehran apartment bore this double life. On the bookshelf, Western fashion magazines, visible from the door. In the drawers, coded notebooks beneath lining cloth. She practiced handwriting until her forged Farsi looked careless enough to be real. She rehearsed small details, which side of the street tea vendors used, what insult older women muttered at unveiled girls. Mistakes as small as a gesture could undo her. Each meeting with the archivist followed the same routine. Morning cafes with weak tea and empty notebooks. He spoke little, she listened. He never said who controlled him, only that he wanted to disappear. She replied that weddings were good places to disappear. He laughed, thinking she was joking. It became their running line. One afternoon, while waiting for him outside the post office, Yael glimpsed a man reading a newspaper inside a parked sedan. His gaze followed her reflection in shop glass. Over 2 months, she saw him 3 more times. She mentioned it to her contact, codenamed Regev. Regev asked her to ignore it, that surveillance was normal background noise. She didn't believe him, but she nodded. Regev controlled the second set of forged documents: marriage approvals, immigration waivers, travel permissions for the Paris-Tehran relocation of the new couple. But he was late in delivering them. The delay meant the cover event, the wedding, had to occur before all papers matched. For Yael, it meant the signature she placed this morning might contradict the version waiting in Tehran's municipal files. A single mismatch would raise a flag. That evening, while checking the fake passports under faint light, Yael noticed something. The groom's surname spelled 2 letters differently than the one rehearsed with her. She didn't mention it to the team. Correction required a new print cycle and new photos. Impossible before ceremony day. She closed the booklet and locked it away. Later, lying awake, she realized what that error meant. Only one other person in Tehran had access to the print templates, Regev. Either he had made a mistake, or someone inside their line had adjusted the record intentionally. In both cases, someone else knew. She replayed that thought until dawn. Morning brought the rehearsal. Guests she'd never met arrived bearing silver trays and gossip. An elderly uncle kissed her forehead, calling her exactly like your mother. She smiled, unable to ask which mother he imagined. When she turned to hide her face, she spotted the man from the sedan standing by the florist, smiling faintly before disappearing into the crowd. 2 hours before the ceremony, Yael receives a note slipped under her door. Only 4 words in Persian: "He knows the truth." She folds the paper and hides it beneath her sleeve. Then she forces the same calm expression she practiced in the mirror. Around her, the hotel fills with laughter and perfume again. Somewhere below, someone is lying just as carefully as she is. But which lie is protecting her, and which one is about to collapse? By morning, the hotel corridors smell of stale perfume and coffee. The air is heavy with postponed silence, the kind that settles when people prepare for something irreversible. Yael steps out of her room in full bridal attire, moving slower than the rehearsal demands. Every detail must appear effortless, but never practiced. Behind her, the bridesmaids hum a melody that she doesn't recognize. Someone has changed the song. On her wrist, beneath the ribbons, the thin strap of a transmitter presses against her pulse. It sends no voice, only a coded signal every 60 seconds, a beating heart measured in radio. Somewhere across the city, Regev should be reading it on his receiver, but there's no confirmation light on her end. She checks one last time before entering the ballroom. No flash, no pulse. The invisible link between her and command is gone. At the top of the staircase, the sight below strikes her with a cold precision. Too many guests. 10, maybe 15 more than the approved list. Every additional body means another photograph, another unpredictable witness. She finds one of the wedding planners, a quiet woman with trembling hands, and asks who authorized the new entries. The answer nearly freezes her mid-sentence. The groom said it would look suspicious without them. The groom, the man who's supposed to be Mossad's own phantom, the one playing the cousin from Paris, the one she met only twice in person, both times under protocol silence. He has altered the plan without her knowledge. Across the room, he glances up. The expression is calm, casual, affectionate even. But Yael sees it. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. When the ceremony starts, she recites phrases she memorized phonetically years ago during training. Her mind, detached from words, drifts to the missing signal. The unapproved guests, the groom's quiet defiance. Something is unspooling behind the curtain of the operation, and she's the only one feeling it in real time. As rings slide onto fingers, a man near the back of the crowd raises a camera. Ordinary gesture, but the flash is wrong, too bright, too direct. She looks straight at him. The man lowers the lens instantly and disappears among guests. She wants to stop the ceremony, but the applause swallows her hesitation. Her signature now binds her legally. If anyone later checks, she is Neda Rahimi, wife to a man whose documents spell his name 2 different ways. During the dinner, she excuses herself to find a quiet corner. In the service corridor, fluorescent lights buzz. She reaches for the small transmitter again. The signal lamp suddenly blinks alive once, then goes dark. One-way contact. Someone is still out there, but not Regev. Her instinct says to abort. She rehearses the phrase in her mind: operation cancelled, asset on hold, fallback to secondary exfil route. The order must be clean, undeniable. And yet, who would receive it now? Yael returns to the hall and finds the groom in conversation with an elderly man she doesn't recognize. His posture is rigid. When she approaches, the conversation halts. The old man nods politely and walks away. The groom leans in. "Change of plan," he says softly in Persian. "We move tonight, not tomorrow." She stares at him. "Who authorized that?" He doesn't blink. "Regev?" The name lands between them like shrapnel. She studies his expression for signs of deceit. Either he's telling the truth and Regev is alive somewhere giving orders through another channel, or he's improvising without sanction. Both options mean exposure. When the guests start dancing, Yael steps out onto the balcony overlooking the noisy street. Her hands tremble. Below, cars move in slow lines, and street vendors shout over engines. The ordinariness of it feels cruel. For them, this night is just another wedding. For her, it's a narrowing corridor of decisions, each without certainty. The door opens behind her. The groom joins her, carrying a glass of water. For a few seconds, they stand without speaking. Then he says, "Regev's line is dead. They told me to use a local relay code named Soleil. It's safer." The name means nothing to her. Mossad uses Hebrew identifiers, not French. The tiny detail opens a hollow in her stomach. She realizes what it could mean. The groom isn't from her line, he's from another. He hands her a folded note. Inside, instructions written in block letters: escort subject to convoy point 7 after 2100, border file under medical transfer. No signatures, no encryption, just physical paper, a breach of every operational rule. "Where did this come from?" she asks. His answer is distant. "They said higher clearance. Immediate. Who said?" He hesitates. "The same channel that sent you here." Yael shakes her head. "That's impossible." The groom's voice, still calm, cuts her off. "Then someone's been lying to both of us." She studies him, searching for a flicker of deception, but sees only fatigue, the look of a man trapped inside too many forged names. When he leaves, she remains on the balcony long enough for the noise below to disappear into a single hum. Inside her mind, training guidelines run like broken film: trust chain, confirm signals, abort if duplicate lines appear. Every rule points toward one conclusion: call the operation off. Yet, aborting now means leaving the archivist alone in Tehran, undefined and unprotected, a loose thread the Iranians will pull eventually. She pictures his face, quiet, unambitious, believing that the woman called Neda would somehow take him to safety. He's already risked meetings, photocopies, small leaks, all for the promise of escape. Abandoning him now would erase those risks, but brand them as betrayal. Still, something deeper presses against her conscience. Every decision she's made has depended on lies crafted by unseen hands. If the groom's orders are false, someone is using her, perhaps Tel Aviv, perhaps a rival service manipulating Mossad's network. She replays the flash from the camera earlier that day. A signal? Maybe a marker? The notion sharpens. If the Iranians already know, the entire wedding is a staged vacuum, drawing them into one controlled detonation of identities, not explosives. The hallway clock strikes 8. Less than an hour till the supposed convoy rendezvous. She retrieves the emergency capsule hidden in her shoe heel: sodium cyanide, last resort. The presence of it grounds her. Choosing when to die is still control. In the bridal suite, she meets the groom again. He's packing documents into a travel chest. They'll be here soon, he tells her. Medical team, plain coats. We load into their van, leave before shift change. She sits quietly, letting him believe she agrees. Then she says, almost gently, "You should know my channel never authorized this." He stops moving. "Then whose orders are we following? I was hoping you'd tell me." He says nothing. The silence stretches. The boundaries of trust collapse between them, replaced by weary necessity. Finally, she asks, "If this is compromised, what happens to Faik?" The groom answers without looking at her. Then, he was never ours to save. His tone is flat, resigned. Something inside her fractures. For the first time, she wonders whether the archivist was ever real at all, or a manufactured target built to test her loyalty, to measure how far she'd sustain the lie. Minutes before departure, a call comes through the hotel's public phone. The receptionist knocks and hands her the receiver. An unfamiliar voice speaks in perfect Hebrew. "Yael Ben-Or, this is Tel Aviv Control. Stand down immediately. We have no operative named Regev in Tehran." The world slows. No operative named Regev. The voice continues, steady and official. "Your contact was compromised months ago. You were placed under observation to isolate the leak. The groom beside you works for us, but under separate command. You are secondary bait. Repeat, do not proceed to any convoy." Yael's throat tightens. She glances at the groom, who's watching her from across the room, waiting. He thinks she's speaking to logistics, not hearing the demolition of her entire reality. The voice on the line repeats the order, sharper now. "Abort immediately, or you will not cross the border alive." Then the line goes dead. Yael places the receiver down, hand shaking. Across the room, the groom lifts an eyebrow, silently asking if all is well. She nods once automatic. Inside her mind, the questions multiply faster than answers. If Regev never existed, who sent the earlier instructions, the signals, the forged documents? Who wrote, "He knows the truth," and slipped it under her door? The operation she thought she led is no longer an extraction mission. It's a decoy, an internal purge disguised as rescue. Somewhere out there, another team is watching her every move, waiting to see which version of her story survives. She looks at the man still folding the papers meant to save them both. For a rare second, pity surfaces. They are both constructs, both wearing ghosts. The clock ticks toward 9. Downstairs, engines start. Whether the convoy belongs to allies or hunters, she can't tell anymore. The hallway mirror catches her reflection in the dim light, bridal makeup cracked, eyes stripped of certainty. She whispers under her breath, not a prayer, not an oath, only a truth without allegiance. Everything she knows could be false, and the night isn't over yet. The air inside the hotel thickens. The guests have drifted away. The laughter has evaporated into corridors lined with half-cleaned tables and scattered flowers. The hotel staff begins stacking chairs, muttering quietly. Yael stands by the open window, her bridal dress heavy with heat and nervous sweat. The veil smells of dust now, not rosewater. Down on the street, 3 white vans, idle by the curb, lights off, engines faintly running. Men in medical coats unload metal crates stamped with the emblem of the Red Crescent. She counts 6 of them, too few for a real convoy, too alert for civilian workers. The groom insists it's the extraction team. Her mind runs 2 versions of the same event. In one, she follows him into those vans, escapes toward the border. In the other, she vanishes under interrogation within 24 hours. Both look real, both have logic. She can no longer tell which one she's supposed to believe. He calls her from the doorway, saying it's time. She looks down at her hands, half expecting someone else's voice to answer. Instead, she says quietly, "We shouldn't move yet." He doesn't argue. Instead, he studies her face. "You got new instructions?" he says. It isn't a question. She doesn't reply. He sighs, checking his watch. "I can't wait." The convoy has a 5-minute window before shift change. After that, patrols double. You decide. And then he leaves no anger, no urgency, just the calm of a man convinced he knows the right path. His footsteps fade down the stairs, even and deliberate. Yael stands still. Her body wants to follow, but her training claws back when 2 commands conflict. Verify. When verification is impossible, prioritize survival. She counts to 30, then to 30 again. The signal transmitter still sits mute on her wrist. She imagines 2 command posts observing her through rival surveillance teams. One might see hesitation as guilt, another as obedience. Either interpretation could kill her. Finally, she moves. She removes the veil, wraps it around a metal chair, and leaves it beside the window, something to suggest haste, pursuit, chaos. Then she picks up her travel satchel and walks toward the staircase, pulse hammering. The service elevator is slower but shielded from the lobby. She takes it anyway, forcing herself to breathe in steady counts 4 in, 6 out. By the time the doors open to the basement, the vans outside have already started moving. She sees their headlights sliding across the wall through the narrow ventilation grate. The groom's silhouette appears briefly, climbing into the first van. He doesn't look back. She rushes to the maintenance corridor leading to the alley, hoping to intercept or confirm the convoy's markings before committing. Midway, a man steps out from behind a column hotel security. He asks for her ID in dry, bureaucratic tones. Her fake marriage certificate sits deep in the satchel. Her real weapon is a story. She gives him one instantly. The photographer's forgot an album. She's collecting it before departure. The man frowns, not suspicious, just tired. He waves her off, but his radio cracks a few words behind him, something about embassy protocol. 2 seconds of pure stillness. She should walk away. Instead, she asks too casually, "Which embassy?" The man shrugs. "Israeli, maybe." They closed the street 2 blocks away. Her blood turns to iron. There is no Israeli embassy in Tehran, not since '79. The code name, Soleil, the unfamiliar vehicles, the paper instructions, all of it folds into one possibility she hadn't wanted to face. The entire exit is Iranian counterintelligence bait. She mutters thanks, walks quickly toward the rear alley, and in the shadows presses both hands against the concrete just to feel something solid. For a moment, she thinks she should run not to safety, but to the real extraction point that might still exist somewhere along the border route. Every instinct says move. Every rule says freeze. She stays. Minutes drag by. Then an unmarked black sedan glides into the alley without headlights. A woman gets out, wearing civilian clothes, hair uncovered. She gestures once, palm down a Mossad field signal, years out of use but unmistakable. Yael's breath catches. A rescue she didn't expect. The woman opens the trunk, revealing equipment, radio consoles, medical kits, travel gear, everything consistent with field exfiltration. She beckons her forward. "Yael, come now." Yael's first thought isn't relief, it's calculation. If this is authentic, the woman should know her alias, not her real name. "Who told you I was here?" she asks. The woman answers instantly. "Regev. He sent me before they cut comms. False release. All tension melts too fast, but it's wrong. Unnaturally easy." Yael realizes the trap a second too late. She steps backward just as the trunk slams shut, and 2 men appear at the alley mouth. Not Red Crescent, but local police. The woman yells in Farsi, gesturing wildly toward Yael. A gun glints under her coat. Yael runs. Pure reflex. She darts through the side door into the laundry wing and collides with stacks of linens and the sharp scent of bleach. Bullets smack into metal somewhere behind her. She hears shouts, then silence again. Inside a narrow room, she locks the door and crouches behind a line of carts. Her heartbeat feels like a hammer against the tiled walls. She pulls out her transmitter, still dark, then one sudden pulse. For the first time all day, the light flashes 3 times in quick succession. 3 blinks, the old code for secondary route active. She exhales sharply, nearly laughing. False release, again, because she has no idea who sent it. 3 blinks could mean the real Tel Aviv if a satellite relay survived. It could also mean whoever intercepted the line earlier. Both sides would have reason to communicate now. Sweat trickles into her eyes as she crawls toward the air duct vent. From outside comes the distinctive grind of van gears. The convoy hasn't left yet. If she's wrong, if those vans are genuine Mossad cover, then refusing to board condemns not just her, but the entire network attached to her alias. They'll assume defection, burn the legend, cut every contact. If she's right, boarding means disappearance into Iranian custody or worse, a staged foreign scandal. Either path ends her operative life. She hesitates mid-crawl, hand trembling against the metal vent. One wrong move either way will define reality. Footsteps return. Male, single. She peers through the slats. The groom stands there, breathing hard, sweat streaking his temple. "Where were you?" he asks. Yael doesn't answer immediately. "You were supposed to wait. They were watching. We had no choice." He kneels beside her. His face shows not panic, but tired certainty. "They're not the enemy, Yael. They're internal review. They're taking us out quietly." Her laugh escapes before she can stop it. "Internal review? They tried to kill me." His jaw clenches. "They need a controlled story." Mossad can't risk admitting a compromised operation in Tehran. They'll stage arrests and then trade us later. She stares at him. The calm logic almost convinces her almost. You actually believe that? He shrugs. It's cleaner that way. It's a false start, an illusion of clarity crashing into unreality. For a few minutes, she lets herself believe him. Maybe there is an agreement, a cover inside a cover. Maybe surviving means surrendering to the script others wrote. Then, faintly, through the duct cracks, she hears the distant crackle of a loudspeaker outside. Security command requests all staff to remain on premises until morning. The voice isn't Iranian, it carries a foreign accent. Someone else has entered the stage, not Tehran, not Mossad. Another player using their chaos. She grips the transmitter again, whispering into its dead channel. If anyone hears this, confirm control, confirm chain. Static answers her, then faintly, proceed. Route 7. Confirm with passphrase, Eden. The passphrase is outdated by 5 years withdrawn after a compromised operation in Damascus. Whoever used it hasn't received a new update since. The realization tears through her certainty one last time. She turns to the groom. If I walk out there, what phrase do they give you for confirmation? He pauses. Jericho. Different word. 2 keys that don't fit the same lock. Yael lowers the transmitter. Then we're both being played. He opens his mouth, but the sudden rumble of van engines drowns his answer. The hotel trembles with vibration. Through the vent slats, light floods the room, bright and flickering. She makes her decision without logic, only instinct. She grabs the backup passport from her satchel and presses it into his hand. You go with them. If they're real, tell them I aborted. If they're not, you'll find out sooner than I do. He shakes his head. They'll kill me. Maybe, she says, but if we both stay, no one lives long enough to know why. He holds her gaze, then nods once and leaves, vanishing into the glare. The hallway empties again. Alone, Yael crawls deeper into the ventilation shaft, crawling toward a secondary exit mapped months ago, a path leading under the service road. Each movement erases another version of her identity. Bride, courier, bait, ghost. As she climbs out into the night air, sirens echo behind her. She looks back once. The vans are gone, the hotel lights flicker, and somewhere in the confusion, a false report will name her dead by morning. She doesn't mourn yet. Survival feels like impersonation. One more lie she hasn't finished telling. The desert horizon glows faintly under moonlight. She walks toward it, small steps leaving shallow prints that the wind immediately begins to erase. And for the first time, she doesn't know which side she's walking toward or which side she's leaving behind. An hour after Yael vanished into the desert outskirts, Tehran police sealed the entire hotel. Guests were questioned, papers cross-checked, and whispers filled the air about an illicit foreign ring. By morning, news bulletins framed the incident as a smuggling scandal involving forged Red Crescent vehicles. The names of the bride and groom disappeared from the registry. Official statements listed them as unidentified foreigners. Inside Mossad's East Division, a silent emergency committee met before dawn. No one used the word failure, they used phrases like premature compromise and signal corruption. The staff who built Yael's legend began redacting it, piece by piece, scrubbing files, closing channels, deleting code names. Her Parisian alias, Lala, was reclassified under unrecoverable asset. Meanwhile, Tehran's security bureau leaked fragments of the story to foreign press, photographs of the hotel, a broken camera flash recovered near the reception hall, an abandoned bridal veil on a chair. Every image was proof of presence, but none of identity. The ambiguity served everyone well. But the real fallout began before sunrise when one of the supposed Red Crescent vans went missing. Satellite surveillance caught it crossing the Turkish border 3 hours later empty. No bodies, no equipment, no sign of the archivist. It became the enduring mystery of the operation, whether the convoy was Iranian bait, a rival service theft, or an internal exfiltration that had moved without authorization. Inside the Tel Aviv briefing room, questions turned to priorities. Who intercepted Yael's command line? How did incompatible passphrases Eden and Jericho reach the same mission file? The senior officer responsible for coordination resigned quietly that week. He wasn't accused, only thanked for his years of service. He left without ceremony. For Yael, fallout wasn't measured in documents but in distance. She walked through the dry periphery until she reached the outskirts of Tabriz. A Kurdish farmer found her half-conscious, sunburnt, and dressed like a ruined bride. She introduced herself as a journalist whose car had broken down. The man offered her water and called the police. Before they arrived, she stole his motorbike and rode toward the border. Mossad didn't try to retrieve her. Official retrieval windows had closed. A line from internal transcripts stated bluntly, "Operative presumed compromised. Let local cover dissolve naturally." For the agency, forgetting her was safer than searching. The wedding affair, as it later became known inside Israeli intelligence, changed operational policy in subtle but permanent ways. First, dual control lines were no longer authorized in hostile capitals. Every mission was required to run a single, verified chain, monitored from 2 continents to prevent mirror commands. Second, fabricated assets like the archivist, real people wrapped in invented significance, could no longer be used to test operatives' loyalty. The ethical cost had bled into efficiency. People stopped trusting briefings. Third, Mossad's reputation, unshaken publicly, fractured internally. Field officers began using the phrase "ghost brides" to describe missions where agents were deployed as disposable lures. The phrase wasn't in any report, but everyone understood it meant Yael. In Iran, the counterintelligence branch responsible for the operation drew its own conclusions. They believed they'd uncovered a false recruitment network, not a deep cover, extraction. The colonel who led the sting received an internal commendation, then disappeared months later. Tehran's rumor mills claimed he defected. Others whispered Mossad found him first. The incident also rattled foreign liaison services. France quietly tightened visa scrutiny on Iranian expatriates in Paris. Britain suspended a joint signals relay program. No one cited the operation by name, but the sudden caution spoke loudly. A CIA memo, declassified decades later, summarized it dryly, unclear if Mossad staged its own deception or fell victim to another's. Result: mutual paralysis, operational mistrust, and disruption of Iranian logistics network. Strategic gain negligible. Even in ambiguity, geopolitics rearranged itself. Iran's procurement channels slowed. European intermediaries hesitated to trade. Israel's intelligence architecture became more compartmentalized. Global supply routes shifted not because of what anyone knew, but because of what they no longer trusted. Years later, whisper networks and intelligence circles spoke of a woman in Cyprus running a translation bureau for Middle Eastern clients. She never gave her last name, never attended embassy events, never posed for photographs. Once, an old case officer swore she recognized her voice during a contract negotiation, quiet, balanced, deliberate. The story faded after that. For Mossad, the cost lingered less visibly. Files from Tehran went dark for 2 full years. Every asset in satellite orbit around that network was either reassigned or told to vanish. Internal evaluations labeled it an intelligence vacuum. Regev's ghost, the non-existent handler, became a cautionary example in training academies. Instructors would ask new recruits, who was Regev's handler? The answer always was no one. Then they'd ask, how long would you keep believing in a voice that keeps you alive? Operationally, Israel regained footing within 5 years, but morale within its clandestine service didn't. Loyalty requires faith, and deception corrodes faith first. Some officers began refusing deep cover assignments altogether. Others accepted them and never reported back. The deeper cost existed beyond files or politics. It lived in those who survived under false names for too long. Yael, wherever she ended, had become untethered. Not rogue nor dead, just permanently unanchored to truth. Her life reduced to improvisation, stretched across years. She would never know whether the archivist survived, whether any of her lies had saved or doomed anyone. The ambiguity of success was her inheritance. Back in Tel Aviv, a junior analyst reviewing an old line transmission noticed something strange months later. A sequence of pulses matching Yael's original heartbeat signal, spaced exactly 60 seconds apart. They came from somewhere near the Turkish-Iraqi border. It could have been echo, equipment malfunction, or a deliberate signature left behind. The file was marked for review, but quietly lost in categorization. Another missing data set in a system built to forget inconvenient survivors. By the time anyone looked again, the signal was gone. The operation remained classified for decades. Its official retelling, when it finally surfaced, spoke of courage, improvisation, and strategic extraction. The language sanitized the moral fractures, erasing hesitation and uncertainty. What those documents never mentioned was the small, private truth that defined its legacy. The most effective lies are often the ones an organization tells itself. And in intelligence work, there's no medal for surviving your own legend. In the world of hidden operations, deception is currency, but every currency devalues with use. Once trust runs out, only silence remains.